A huge thanks to Brian for sponsoring this video. Good morning, fellow mathematicians. Welcome back to another video. In the next few weeks, months, etc., we are gonna switch up the content a tiny little bit because I asked you guys in my community if you would be interested in a series where I talk about exams that I have created for my students at school. And the vast majority of you guys, namely 96%, it's basically 69, just turned around, were totally stoked by the idea. So here we go. But before we can get into the exams in and of themselves, we need to talk about how I teach first things first, because if I don't talk about that, you won't really get an idea as to why I designed an exam the way I did. Hence, in the first episode in this new series, what we are going to do is we are going to explore the German educational system, which does probably differ quite a bit from the educational system where you come from, be it the US, India or Greenland. So without further ado, let us talk about the wonderful world of German education. By the way, talking about education, this video has been sponsored by the wonderful people over in Brilliant. So if you're interested in the educational side of life, then definitely make sure to check out their content. More information at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. They are amazing. So watch out. Now we are going to dive right in. So as per usual in Germany, what we do here is being dictated by the government in some kind of way. And the people telling us what to do are the retarded individuals over on the Bildungsministerium. They are basically the government arm to dictate to us what we have to teach. What they do is they create for us teachers the so-called Lehrplan. A few years back it has been called the Rahmenlehrplan. It's basically just the curriculum where we can look into on their website and see what we need to teach at school. Now, it has been called Rahmenlehrplan a few years prior, as mentioned before. And Rahmenlehrplan just basically means you have to kind of teach what we dictate you, but not fully. It's kind of in your hands. It's just a Rahmenlehrplan. It's just basically a scaffold, an outline of what the students need to learn in order for them to pass the exams. Be it the Realschulabschluss, which is kind of the lowest degree you could get next to the Hauptschulabschluss, or the Gymnasiale Oberstufe, the Abitur, which is the highest degree you could get in school. Now, I teach at the Gesamtschule, so that's grade 5 and up to grade 13 at the moment, which would be the Abitur. But if I only teach up to grade 10, that means people get the Realschulabschluss in the best case. So basically what I would do if I taught mathematics, for example, or physics, or German, or English, or Spanish, or whatever, I would go onto the website lisa.saxony-anhalt.de and then I would scroll down and then I would see, okay, I am teaching, for example, in a Gesamtschule. This is where I do my clicky on the linky. Then I scroll down and would you look at that? Those are a lot of things you can teach. And what I'm doing is I'm gonna click on the mathematics side of things. I can download the document and here we go. This is the Fachlehrplan, so the curriculum for the Gesamtschule, or also called Sekundarschule, at least up until grade 10. And what you are going to find in here, as mentioned previously, are all the recommended things you could teach such that the students can pass their final exams, such that they get a certain degree at school. Now, I am always saying you have to kind of teach the things. And here's where matters become a bit tricky and a bit in our hands as a teacher. Now, you see, there are previous exams. Like every year you write a certain exam which gains your students a degree. And as a school, obviously, you keep those and you can basically orientate yourself and the exercises you do along those lines. What is being used in those exams in that certain year? Is it getting harder over the years, or is it not getting harder over the years, so easier on the students? And in a normal case, students become dumber each and every year. At least this is what I think. This is what I see on a regular basis. It's not that I'm against the youth, but people are dumb as shit at the moment. And so over the years, the conditions for passing or for getting a degree are getting lower and lower. So less and less stuff needs to be taught such that people can actually pass, which is not too nice for me as a teacher, because I want to teach stuff, and what I'm doing at the moment is just I'm trying to get a few things through to the students, but this is a whole other story. What I want to say is the Landesschulamt dictates what we need to teach, but we as teachers can create ourselves a so-called schulinternes curriculum, which is basically just a school internal curriculum, meaning I can orientate myself on the Rahmenlehrplan and create myself an own schedule, what I want to teach in which grade, and so on and so forth. And we pass the schulinterne curriculum over to the Landesschulamt, and they say yes, or they say nah. But in the normal case, they just say yes, because no one is reading through that stuff. So this is kind of good for us as teachers, because you see, this way we can take a look at the previous exams for the certain degrees and say, hey, they do not teach thermodynamics anymore, or they do not want thermodynamics anymore in their tests for the past 3 years. So why teach it anyways? No one gives a shit for the students to pass or to get themselves the degree. And this is an evolution that I do not like, that I do not particularly enjoy, but it makes it easier for the students. So if we as teachers just think a bit further, we can make it easier on our students. And this is what we regularly do. So this is like the third instance. We pass the school internal curriculum along, but what we also do as teachers is we kind of ignore what we have wrote in there and just teach along such that we can get the students to pass. Those are the 3 stages of grief in the German educational system. It's a terrible evolution, but it just is what it is. And I think it's the same in each and every country. Students are getting lazier and lazier. They just can't remember stuff anymore the way people did 20 years ago. And we are kind of in a downward spiral at the moment when it comes to education, at least here in Germany. But I am not one to judge. I am just one to teach. And now, with that out of the way, let us take a look at the real curriculum that the Landesschulamt gives us as teachers. See what I need to teach, for example, in mathematics. And then in the next few sessions in the series, we can talk about what I have taught explicitly in a certain grade and how I designed my exams right after that. Now, looking at the Fachlehrplan, it's pretty colorful. That's even an older version, but why is the older version linked at the first link on the official website? See? The people from the Landesschulamt are just as retarded as my students. But never mind that, this really doesn't matter. This is from 2019. So if we scroll down, what we get is a bunch of people just being listed here that brought this abomination to life. And then we see, okay, so we have grades 5 and 6 and upwards up until 10th grade. This is the last grade that is being denoted here in this curriculum, because it's just for the Gesamtschule, just for the Sekundarschule, so 5 to 10. And then we could take a look at, for example, 5 and 6. And then we find this fancy table right here that you probably can't read if you are not German. But we have a few things here that we need to take a look at. So we have the header here, PMAD. No, this has nothing to do with PODMAS or anything of that sort. And then we have a bunch of things here, like for example, that looks like algebra, for example. Oh, so we got geometry here, analysis here, and a bit of data here. So if we were to take a look at little legend, just taking a look at what the PMAD means. Let me scroll upwards. We are gonna find information about that very quickly a bit upwards in the list here. So for example, the P stands for solving mathematical problems, P for problem. And the Landesschulamt denotes here what basically skills you need to teach your students such that they have a certain understanding of the topic in that regards solving mathematical problems for a certain age. So for 5 and 6, what you, for example, need to do is you need to analyze certain mathematical texts, like Joe Mama buys 5 apples. How much is an apple if 5 cost 20 bucks, for example? Okay, this is analyzing the problem and then thinking back. So think backwards and like. And those skills are getting obviously harder and harder for the students over time, so they get a better mathematical understanding of the problems at hand. So that's the first part, P, solving mathematical problems. Next up is mathematical modeling. This includes everything from geometry problems and getting yourself a figure and interpreting it and the like. This is what the M stands for. And analyzing structures and the like. Then we also have mathematical argumenting and communicating. Meaning what you have to have as a skill is, if I give you a mathematical problem, for example, you need to be able to communicate this problem to other people. Or if you've got a certain solution at hand, so you write out a solution, you need to be able to communicate your thought process in the solution to your teacher or your other students, for example. And the last part is the D. Oh my goodness, the D. This is for using mathematical notation, for example. It's pretty self-explanatory and students need to be able to do that. And as mentioned before, 5 and 6, not much to do there. Maybe they need to learn a bit about sets and what natural numbers are, and writing, for example, those curly brackets for the divisor set and the like. But for grades 9 and 10, it gets a bit more complicated with the element symbol and the like. Yeah, this is what that is all about. Now we can go back to grades 5 and 6 and see what they got in here. So if we take a look at, for example, the mathematical problem solving, what grades 5 and 6 need to do is they need to be able to calculate stuff in their head. They need to kind of estimate certain mathematical numbers in a way such that they get a better grasp of it. So estimating, for example, 2.5 times 2. That's approximately 4, something between 4 and 6, because 2 times 2 is 4 and 2 times 3 is 6, and it's bounded in there a tiny little bit, something of that sort. When it comes to mathematical modeling, for example, what they need to do in the algebra section is they need to be able to get out a model for divisors, for example. So if you have 32 cards, you can divide it up into a rectangle of side length 8 and 4 and the like, and so on. And this whole thing continues for all the other parts that need to be taught in grade 5 and 6, so all the other topics like algebra, geometry, and so on. This is just something that you need to have in your head as a teacher, keep in mind, such that you get the right skills across to your students. But what is really interesting for us teachers is what you actually need to teach, and this is a bit down here. So if you take a look at grades 5 and 6, the first thing that is gonna happen is we need to talk about numbers and scales, Zahlen und Größen. And here, this is always the same thing, be it for the German teaching or English, Spanish, Italian, I'm always just saying languages here, physics, chemistry, and so on. It's always the same. Landesschulamt tells you what you need to teach. And there are the so-called inhaltsbezogene mathematische Kompetenzen. Those are just skills which are really important for mathematics in that year and grade. For example, you need to read and also write out big natural numbers. For example, 69,420. Okay? You need to write it out. You need to be able to write out big numbers like those, or even bigger numbers. And you also need to be able to tell those out. So if I give you a big number, you need to be able to just speak it out in its entirety. Stuff like that. So what we got here are just natural numbers. This is the first part for the 5th graders. And then here's the most important thing that we teachers need to take a look at, the so-called grundlegende Wissensbestände. This is basically your encyclopedia of what you specifically need to teach, like the small steps in this cooking recipe, such that the students are prepared for their eventual exams during the school year or at the very end of their school career. For the natural numbers, those grundlegende Wissensbestände are, for example, you need to be able to write out a Zahlenstrahl. So this is like a coordinate system just with one axis. Okay, number line. It's a number line. For example, successor and predecessor. You need to be able to write out Roman numerals, for example, and the symbolics behind those. Simple exponents, a to the nth power, so 2 times 2 times 2 is 2 to the 3rd power, and so on. You need to be able to round up and down. What are the rules for rounding up and down in decimal numbers? You need to have a grasp of divisibility rules for 2, 3, 5 and 10, and so on and so forth. What's a prime number? This is for grade 5 and 6 in mathematics, for example. And yeah, then it really doesn't matter if you're a teacher or not. Everyone can take a look at those things. I'm going to link them down there below. And the Landesschulamt is going to let you know what you need to teach such that students are prepared for the exams at some point. Let us take a look at, for example, I'm looking, yeah, grade 9, for example. Once again, really doesn't matter, I can scroll down. Okay, I'm in the 2nd half of grade 9. What do I need to teach? Oh, grundlegende Wissensbestände. This is what I really need to take a look at. I need to take a look at percentages, Grundwert, Prozentwert, and all the other things that are there in the formula basically for the percentages. Then we also need to take a look at Skonto, Brutto, Netto, all the basic stuff that has to do with percentages. What about, for example, loans, and what about the interest rate and the interest of interest, and so on and so forth. This is what needs to be taught, for example, in 9th grade. It's just a small part of that. What do I need to teach next? Oh, linear equations. What's a variable? How can I see if a solution to a certain equation is correct that I found out, and so on and so forth. And I think you get a gist of it now. And if you are really interested in what we need to teach, sadly there is not an English version of that. But this is basically everything I need to tell you about this. This is how we teach in Germany. And as mentioned before, this is just what the Landesschulamt tells us. But if I as a school notice, or I as a teacher notice, thermodynamics isn't even a part of the final exam anymore, then there is no real benefit in teaching it very properly and to a huge extent during a certain grade. There just is no point. I know it's very sad, but it just is what it is. I would rather teach the students as a teacher the things that are really important for the upcoming exams. And this is what I also do. So this is what I also do. This is just what my life as a teacher is like. I teach what the Landesschulamt tells me to do, but if I notice a certain type of topic is not being used anymore in a final exam, I'm just not going to give a fuck to teach it properly anymore. And this is probably the same with most teachers, because you would rather have students that pass with good grades than have them learn something which is just not necessary to learn anymore. It's really sad, but it just is what it is. And it becomes even more critical, you could say, if you don't have a centralized exam for a certain subject, like physics. I'm talking physics here with the thermodynamics, but there is only an oral exam in physics in 10th grade, for example. There is no written exam in the normal case. This is just a very special case if it happens, but in the normal case, what we do is students can say, oh, I want to do the oral exam on Mr. Fehlau, for example, in 10th grade. Then I see, oh, this one student wants to do the oral exam, this is cool, and then I'm just gonna design one for myself. So even if I missed a certain topic in the previous years, or another teacher missed it in the previous years on this student, it really doesn't matter. I can just talk to this teacher, ask them what did you do, what didn't you do, and then I'm just gonna design the exam in such a way that it fits and it only really asks the stuff that the student really had during the year. And with mathematics, it's kind of similar. You get yourself the Realschulabschluss, you just keep the old exams and then you just see what is being asked and what is not asked anymore, and then you teach in such a way that students really only learn the necessary things such that they are able to pass. And this is what teaching in Germany looks like, and it has a lot of fatal flaws, but I'm not one to judge. I'm just one to teach, as mentioned before. And I hope you did enjoy this little introduction into the German educational system. And do not fear, once we talk about the exams that I design in and of themselves, we are also going to talk about what did I teach, or how did I teach, for example, number theory at my school. So this is basically going to be the next part in the series, and I hope you did enjoy what you have seen today. And if you did, then you should most definitely check out the content of today's sponsor, Brilliant, who are kind enough to sponsor yet another video here on this channel. I am talking German educational system here. So how could an English website like Brilliant be of any use to me, for example, or how could it be of use to you? Let me tell you. So to give you a short understanding of what Brilliant is, it's basically just an online learning platform which teaches you everything that you really need to know in the STEM field, be it mathematics, physics, computer sciences, chemistry, and so on. No matter what it is you want to learn today for your studies at school or maybe at university, Brilliant is most definitely the perfect fit for you. As for its uses, I have found over the years that Brilliant makes for a great source of learning for my students too. One of my most favorite examples is the geometry section, because especially in grades 5, 6 and 7, it's extremely important to teach the students in a visual manner. They have not advanced their abstract thinking, especially in mathematics, in such a way that they could understand, for example, linear functions without any kind of visualizations. And for example, when it comes to geometry, it's really good to teach students why, for example, the sum of all the interior angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. You can put proofs on your blackboard for sure. This is something that you could do. Or you could use Brilliant's great visualization to show them in a few seconds why the 180 degrees is always going to be preserved no matter which triangle you shape. And this is just one of the beautiful things about Brilliant. It's their interactive content and their visuals that you can play around with to get a better understanding of the problem at hand. And as mentioned before, it's not only mathematics where it's extremely useful. Also in physics, when it comes to throwing a ball and what the path of the ball looks like as a parabola, or maybe the rocket equation, all of those things being visualized just makes so much more sense for the students and also probably to yourself if you have seen those. So why wait any longer? Make sure to just check out Brilliant for yourself by using my link down there at the top of the description, brilliant.org/wempelmaths. You can just use it to get yourself a 30-day free trial. I mean, what can you lose? Make clicky on the linky and just try it out for yourself. See if it's something for you. And maybe you fall in love with Brilliant, just like I did a few years prior. Then you could always make this a permanent thing and save yourself also by using my link 20% off an annual premium subscription, which is a fantastic deal considering how much content they already have on the website and how much content they are adding on a regular basis. So seriously, try it out. You can support the channel this way on the one hand, but on the other hand, you are supporting your own studies that way. Brilliant is going to be your way to learn something new in a new and fresh way. It's seriously cool. You should check it out. I just like it. I just like what they do and my students like it too. And that was a rhyme, and I think that greatly ends the video on a positive note, because a rhyme is always fine. And in the next video I wish you guys a flammable day. See ya!